Professor Quintara adjusted her 6 spectacles with 2 of her 4 arms, surveying the Advanced Predator Studies classroom at the prestigious Galactic Academy. Her purple skin shimmered under the artificial lighting as she prepared for what she considered the most important lecture of the semester. Today's topic: the most terrifying apex predators ever documented in galactic history. Settle down, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 3 centuries studying the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. Today we will examine footage that has caused seasoned xenobiologists to require therapeutic intervention. The classroom buzzed with nervous excitement. Students from dozens of species occupied the specially designed seats, each accommodation tailored to their unique physiologies. Near the front, Moran clicked his mandibles anxiously, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic display screen in thousands of tiny fragments. The insectoid student from Kepler 442b had survived the acid-spitting tunnel worms of his homeworld, but even he seemed apprehensive about today's material. "Professor," Moran's translator crackled, "surely nothing could be worse than the shadow stalkers of my planet. They hunt in complete darkness and can dissolve organic matter with their saliva." Quintara's laugh was not reassuring. "Oh my dear Moran, what we're about to witness makes your shadow stalkers look like cuddly nursery creatures." Behind Moran, Mortin's crystalline form chimed softly as he processed this information. The silicon-based being's geometric body shifted through various transparent hues, indicating deep thought. "Professor Quintara, I have calculated the theoretical maximum efficiency for predatory behavior based on known galactic standards. Surely no creature could exceed a 93% success rate." "Theoretical maximums," Quintara mused, "are about to become laughably inadequate, my geometric friend." In the middle rows, Brandon Torres shifted uncomfortably. The exchange student from some backwater planet called Earth had been unusually quiet all semester, but today he seemed almost amused. His strange forward-facing eyes crinkled at the corners in what other species had learned was a human expression of humor. How odd. Actually, wait, Brandon Torres was absent today. The human student present was Amy Kowalski, who sat with the same inexplicable air of amusement. Her bipedal form looked deceptively fragile compared to the armored, scaled and chemically protected bodies surrounding her. "Before we begin," Professor Quintara continued, "let us establish context. What would you consider the most dangerous predator from your respective homeworlds?" A Zephyrian student's tentacles writhed as he spoke. "The void swimmers of my world can survive in the vacuum of space and have been observed hunting starships." "Impressive," Quintara nodded. "Anyone else?" A student with bark-like skin raised a branch arm. "The metal eaters of Dendron Prime can consume entire mining facilities. They reproduce by converting inorganic matter into offspring." "Fascinating evolutionary adaptation," the professor acknowledged. The testimonials continued. "Acid spitters, dimension hoppers, creatures that existed as pure energy and fed on electrical systems, beasts that could manipulate gravity itself." Each description drew impressed murmurs and nervous chittering from the assembled students. Amy Kowalski remained silent, occasionally glancing at her datapad with what appeared to be mild interest. "Excellent examples all," Professor Quintara declared. "However, the creatures we will observe today represent a level of predatory evolution that defies conventional understanding. These beings demonstrate persistence, adaptability, pack coordination and tool use that approaches technological levels." Mortin's crystalline form darkened to a worried amber. "Tool use in predators is theoretically impossible. It requires cognitive development that should preclude efficient hunting instincts." "Should" being the operative phrase, Quintara replied ominously. "The footage we're about to view was obtained at considerable cost. 3 separate research expeditions were lost attempting to study these creatures in their natural habitat." The classroom fell silent. Even the most confident students began to fidget. Moran's antennae twitched rapidly, a sure sign of extreme anxiety among his species. "These predators," Quintara continued, "inhabit a world classified as a death world by Galactic Standards Committee. The atmospheric composition alone would be lethal to most species present. The gravity exceeds safe parameters. The temperature fluctuations range from freezing to scalding. And yet these predators not only survive but thrive." She paused for dramatic effect, noting with satisfaction how several students had moved closer together for comfort. "Furthermore," she added, "preliminary studies suggest these creatures may have developed symbiotic relationships with other apex predators. Imagine, if you will, cooperation between the most dangerous hunters on a planet." A collective shudder ran through the classroom. Amy Kowalski checked her chronometer and stifled what might have been a yawn. Prepare yourselves, Professor Quintara announced, dimming the lights, for footage that will fundamentally change your understanding of predatory evolution. She activated the holographic display and the first images began to flicker to life. I present to you, she declared dramatically, the apex predators of Sol 3, also known as Earth. The first footage appeared innocuous enough, a small, furry quadruped with forward-facing eyes stalking through what appeared to be dense vegetation. The creature moved with fluid grace, its body low to the ground, muscles coiled for action. Observe the hunting posture, Professor Quintara narrated. Note the binocular vision, indicating a specialized predator. This specimen demonstrates the classic characteristics of an ambush hunter. The small creature suddenly pounced, and the camera revealed its prey, a small rodent that had no chance of escape. The kill was swift, precise, and absolutely silent. Moran's translator crackled with distress. Professor, that creature's hunting efficiency appears to be nearly 100%. How is such precision possible? Patience, dear Moran, Quintara replied. We are only beginning. The footage shifted to show the same type of creature, but larger, much larger. Golden fur rippled over powerful muscles as it stalked through tall grass. When it moved, it was like watching liquid death flow across the landscape. This, Quintara announced, is the larger variant of the same species. Observe its patience. The predator waited, and waited. For what seemed like hours, it remained motionless, eyes fixed on a herd of large herbivores in the distance. Then, in an explosion of coordinated violence, not one but 5 of these creatures attacked simultaneously from different angles. As Zephyrian students' tentacles went rigid with shock. Coordinated pack hunting? But Professor, you said these were the same species as the small one. Indeed, Quintara confirmed. The adaptability range is unprecedented. Mortin's crystalline form flickered through several colors before settling on a deep, worried purple. Professor, I am detecting multiple impossibilities in these creatures. Their size variation suggests genetic instability, yet their hunting success indicates perfect adaptation. This does not compute. Computation, Quintara said dryly, is about to become your least concern. The next footage showed underwater scenes. A massive torpedo-shaped creature glided through blue water with terrifying grace. Its multiple rows of teeth were clearly visible as it approached the camera. Aquatic specialization, the professor noted. This predator has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years, indicating perfect evolutionary design. The shark struck with explosive force, and half the class recoiled as if personally threatened. One of the smaller students actually fell off their perch. The strike force generated by these jaws, Quintara continued, exceeds the structural integrity limits of most known materials. But then the footage changed again. This time it showed a bipedal creature, moving through a forest with tools in its appendages. It wasn't particularly large, wasn't obviously armored, and certainly didn't look like the other predators they had seen. Now we reach the truly disturbing material, Quintara announced. What you are observing represents the pinnacle of predatory evolution. Watch carefully. The bipedal creature began to run, not sprint, not charge, but maintain a steady, relentless pace. The footage showed its prey, a large four-legged herbivore that could obviously outrun the bipedal hunter in a direct chase. But that wasn't what happened. This technique, Quintara explained, is called persistence hunting. The predator does not need to be faster than its prey, it simply needs to be more persistent. The footage continued. The herbivore would run until exhausted, stop to rest, and the bipedal predator would appear again, still maintaining that same inexorable pace. This cycle repeated for hours, literal hours. Moran's compound eyes began to bulge outward, a clear sign of extreme distress in his species. Professor, this is impossible. No predator can maintain hunting behavior for extended periods. The caloric expenditure alone should... His words were cut short as the footage showed the prey animal finally collapsing from exhaustion. The bipedal predator calmly approached and ended the hunt with a sharp tool. The mathematics, Mortin whispered, his voice crackling through his translation matrix, are impossible. The energy expenditure versus caloric return should result in evolutionary extinction. Yet here we observe perfect efficiency. Several students began to quietly file toward the exits. The Dendrian student's bark-like skin had turned an alarming shade of yellow, indicating panic among his species. Wait, Professor Quintara called out. We haven't reached the most disturbing footage yet. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be a web structure, delicate and beautiful. Then the camera zoomed in to reveal the web's creator, an 8-legged creature with multiple eyes and venomous fangs. Mortin's compound eyes literally detached from his head stalks and fell onto his desk with wet plops. I cannot process 8 legs. Multiple eyes. How does such a creature even coordinate movement? The spider footage showed the creature wrapping a struggling insect in silk, storing it for later consumption while still alive. Note the food preservation technique, Quintara commented. Fresh storage while maintaining prey viability. A collective moan of horror rose from the remaining students. But surely, gasped the Zephyrian, surely these creatures represent the ultimate predatory form. Nothing could be more terrifying. Professor Quintara's expression grew somber. I'm afraid we have saved the most disturbing footage for last. The display showed a group of the bipedal hunters. They moved together with coordinated precision, carrying increasingly sophisticated tools. The footage followed them as they tracked a massive herbivore across vast distances, working together to drive it toward a prepared trap. Pack coordination, tool use, strategic planning, and indefinite persistence, Quintara narrated. These creatures represent the theoretical maximum of predatory evolution. The hunting party worked together for days, taking turns maintaining pursuit, sharing resources, and communicating with complex vocalizations. When they finally cornered their prey, the kill was swift and the meat was shared equally among all participants. The social structure, Morton calculated aloud, combined with tool use and persistence hunting, creates a hunting success rate that approaches statistical impossibility. These creatures should not exist. More students evacuated. The emergency exits were getting quite a bit of traffic. Furthermore, Quintara continued, these bipedal predators demonstrate adaptability that defies classification. Observe. The footage showed the same species in completely different environments. Hunting in frozen wastelands, in dense forests, in open grasslands, even in aquatic environments, using constructed tools. Environmental adaptation without evolutionary specialization, she noted. They modify their hunting techniques to suit any environment within a single generation. By this point, only about half the class remained. Those who stayed gripped their desks with whatever appendages they possessed, staring at the holographic display with the horrified fascination of watching a natural disaster. The final footage, Professor Quintara announced, shows these predators in their ultimate hunting formation. The display revealed dozens of the bipedal hunters moving together across a landscape, their tools gleaming in sunlight, their coordinated movements suggesting a level of tactical sophistication that bordered on military precision. The last footage showed one of these creatures looking directly into the camera, its forward-facing predator eyes staring with an intelligence that seemed to acknowledge the observer. The classroom fell into stunned silence. The silence stretched for nearly a full minute. Students sat frozen in various states of terror, processing what they had just witnessed. Some trembled, others had changed colors entirely, and Moran was still trying to reattach his compound eyes to his head stalks. Then, from the back of the classroom, a small hand raised. Professor Quintara blinked all 6 eyes in surprise. Yes, Amy, wasn't it? Do you have a question about the material? Amy Kowalski stood up slowly, her datapad in one hand, looking remarkably calm for someone who had just witnessed what the rest of the class considered the stuff of nightmares. She cleared her throat politely. Professor, about that golden retriever footage from earlier. To the large pack hunter, Quintara asked, confused by the unfamiliar term. The quadruped with the coordinated attack patterns. Yeah, that one. Amy nodded matter-of-factly. I had one just like that growing up. His name was Mr. Whiskers. The silence that followed was so complete that the classroom's air recycling system sounded like a roaring windstorm. Morton's crystalline form flickered rapidly through colors that had no names in any known language. I believe my translation matrix is malfunctioning. Did the human just claim to possess one of these apex predators? Possess? Amy looked puzzled. Well, I wouldn't say possess exactly. Mr. Whiskers was family. He slept on my bed, played fetch in the backyard, and always got excited when I came home from school. Moran's newly reattached eyes immediately detached again. What? And he was terrible at being a guard dog. Amy continued conversationally. He'd wag his tail at burglars. My mom always said he'd probably help thieves carry out the furniture if they asked nicely. Professor Quintara gripped her podium with all 4 arms. Amy, are you suggesting that these apex predators live in close proximity to humans? Well, yeah. Pretty much every family on my street had at least one dog. The Johnsons next door had 3. big German shepherds that could probably take down a moose, but they spent most of their time playing with the neighborhood kids. The remaining students exchanged glances of pure horror. But the hunting efficiency, Morton protested. The pack coordination, the specialized killing adaptations, Amy shrugged. Oh sure, dogs are great hunters, that's why we bred them from wolves in the first place. Took us about 15,000 years to turn wild wolves into companions. Some breeds are still pretty close to their wild ancestors. Bred? Moran's translator screeched. You deliberately modified apex predators? Modified is a strong word, Amy replied. More like guided their evolution. Selective breeding for traits we liked. Loyalty, intelligence, specific hunting skills for different purposes. Some dogs hunt birds, others hunt underground creatures. Some are bred for protection, others just for companionship. Professor Quintara sat down heavily, her lecture notes scattering. Amy, you're telling us that humans deliberately domesticated these creatures, the same species we just observed hunting with terrifying efficiency. Oh, that footage was definitely wolves, not dogs, Amy clarified helpfully, though the hunting techniques are basically the same. Dogs just don't need to hunt for survival anymore because we feed them. Feed them? The Zephyrian student's tentacles had gone completely limp. You provide sustenance to apex predators, twice a day, usually. Premium kibble, wet food, treats. Mr. Whiskers was partial to bacon and absolutely loved peanut butter. Amy smiled fondly at the memory. Morton's form had stabilized into a deep, pulsing red. The mathematical impossibility of this arrangement is causing system errors in my logic centers. Humans coexist with predators that could easily kill them. Kill us. Amy looked genuinely surprised. Dogs? I guess theoretically some of the larger breeds could be dangerous, but they're bred for loyalty and companionship. The biggest danger is usually getting knocked over by an overly enthusiastic greeting or maybe getting your favorite shoes chewed up. She pulled out her datapad and began scrolling through images. Here, let me show you some pictures from when I was little. The holographic display automatically synced with her device, and suddenly the classroom was filled with images of a young human child surrounded by what the aliens now recognized as apex predators. The first image showed a tiny Amy, no more than a few years old, asleep on a couch with an enormous golden-furred predator curled protectively around her. Several more students immediately headed for the exits. That's Mr. Whiskers when I was about 4, Amy explained. He always made sure I was safe during nap time. The next image showed the same child playing in a yard, while 2 smaller predators chased a spherical object, their tongues hanging out in what Amy had described as play behavior. Those are Biscuit and Gravy, the neighbor's dogs. We used to play fetch for hours. Fetch? Professor Quintara asked weakly. It's a game. You throw something, they bring it back. Simple but effective exercise. Dogs love games. The images continued. Amy at age 7, 8, 9, always surrounded by various 4-legged predators, feeding them, playing with them, even dressed in what appeared to be sleeping garments while surrounded by a pack of them. This is Christmas morning when I was 9, Amy said, pointing to an image of herself unwrapping gifts while 5 different dogs watched with apparent interest. We always got the dogs presents too. They liked the squeaky toys best. Moran had given up trying to reattach his eyes and was just holding them in his claws. Gifts? You gave presents to predators. Well, they're family members, Amy said, as if this explained everything. You give gifts to family. Professor Quintara's voice came out as barely a whisper. Amy, how did you survive childhood? Survive? Amy looked confused. Why wouldn't I survive? Dogs are protective of their pack members. Human children are part of the pack. She scrolled to another image. Teenage Amy hiking through what appeared to be wilderness terrain with a large wolf-like predator walking calmly beside her. That's Rex, my parents' current dog. He's half German shepherd, half wolf. Great hiking companion. Very good at warning us about dangerous wildlife. Dangerous wildlife. Morton's voice cracked.
More dangerous than the predators you voluntarily associate with. Oh sure, bears, mountain lions, venomous snakes, aggressive elk during mating season. Rex's hearing and smell are way better than ours, so he can detect threats long before we can. The classroom had emptied to about a quarter of its original occupancy. Those who remained seemed to be in various stages of shock. Let me understand this correctly, Professor Quintara said slowly. Humans use apex predators to protect themselves from other apex predators. Among other things, yeah. Dogs have been human companions for millennia. They help with hunting, protection, herding livestock, finding lost people, detecting drugs or explosives, providing emotional support for trauma victims, guiding blind people. Stop, Morton interrupted. Please, stop. My cognitive processes cannot handle additional impossibilities. Amy looked around the nearly empty classroom with growing concern. Is everything okay? You all seem kind of upset about this. Upset? Moran clutched his detached eyes. Upset? You casually revealed that the galaxy's most terrifying predators are your personal companions. Terrifying. Amy looked back at the paused footage on the main display. You mean dogs? They're not terrifying. They're loyal, loving, intelligent creatures who have been humanity's best friends for thousands of years. She paused, then added thoughtfully, though I guess if you'd never seen one before, and only watched hunting footage, they might look pretty intimidating. Professor Quintara buried her face in all four hands. My entire curriculum, my life's work studying apex predators. Oh, your research is probably very accurate, Amy said helpfully. Dogs are incredible hunters when they need to be. The domestic breeding just redirected those instincts toward cooperation with humans instead of independent survival. Redirected, Quintara repeated hollowly. Plus, Amy continued, you should see what happens when dogs form feral packs. They revert to wild behavior pretty quickly. All those hunting instincts are still there, just dormant. The few remaining students began quietly gathering their belongings. Wait, Amy called out. I have more pictures. Here's one of me giving Mr. Whiskers a bath. The image showed a completely soaked Amy wrestling with an equally soaked, apparently laughing predator in what appeared to be a water containment vessel. Bath time was always an adventure, Amy said fondly. That was when the last of the students made their exodus, leaving only Amy, Professor Quintara, and Morton, whose crystalline form had gone completely transparent in what appeared to be system shutdown. Did I say something wrong? Amy asked innocently. Professor Quintara slowly raised her head, all six eyes focusing on Amy with the intensity of someone trying to solve an impossible equation. Amy, how many of these predators do humans typically keep? Oh, it varies, Amy replied cheerfully. Most families have one or two dogs, maybe a cat. Some people collect birds, others are into reptiles. My neighborhood pet store probably carries about 50 different species at any given time. Morton's crystalline form flickered back to visibility, pulsing a concerned orange. You have commercial establishments dedicated to distributing predators. Well, not just predators, Amy clarified. All sorts of animals, dogs, cats, birds, fish, hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits, lizards, snakes, spiders, ferrets. Really depends on what you're looking for in a companion. Spiders, Moran's translator shrieked, causing feedback that made everyone wince. You voluntarily cohabitate with arachnids? Some people do. Tarantulas are pretty popular pets, low maintenance, interesting to watch, very docile once they're used to handling. Professor Quintara was furiously scribbling notes. And these pet stores, they simply allow civilians to purchase apex predators? No training? No licensing? No psychological evaluation? For most pets, no. I mean, you might need permits for exotic animals, and some places have breed restrictions for larger dogs. But generally, you just walk in, pick out an animal you like, pay for it, and take it home. The statistical probability of survival, Morton began calculating aloud. Given random human exposure to multiple predator species, the numbers don't work. The mortality rate should be astronomical, Amy shrugged. I mean, you do your research first. Different animals have different needs. My neighbor Mrs. Chen has a ball python named Freddy, super sweet snake. Loves being held. My cousin Jake raises hawks for falconry. And my aunt Sarah breeds horses. Horses. Professor Quintara's voice cracked. Those massive quadrupeds from the earlier footage? The ones with the devastating kick force? Yeah, horses are great. Really intelligent, emotional creatures. Aunt Sarah has about 20 of them. She gives riding lessons to kids on weekends. She puts children on top of those predators. Moran had gone completely still, which in his species indicated either deep meditation or complete system failure. They're herbivores, actually, Amy corrected. But yeah, horse riding is pretty common. Great exercise, builds confidence, teaches responsibility. Morton's form was cycling through colors so rapidly it was creating a strobe effect. The mathematical impossibilities are compounding exponentially. Humans willingly place their offspring in direct contact with creatures capable of generating fatal kinetic force. Well, we use safety equipment. Helmets, proper saddles, trained instructors, same as any sport. Professor Quintara set down her stylus with a shaking hand. Amy, in your expert opinion, what would you consider Earth's actual apex predator? Amy paused thoughtfully, tilting her head in a gesture that the aliens had learned indicated human contemplation. Oh, that would be humans, she said, matter-of-factly. We're persistence hunters. The silence that followed was so profound that Morton's color cycling stopped mid-flash. Humans, Professor Quintara repeated slowly, are the apex predators. Well, yeah, I thought that was obvious from your footage. Those bipedal hunters you showed, that was us. Moran's mandibles clicked rapidly. But you're so small, so fragile. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no specialized hunting adaptations. Sure we do, Amy replied. We've got endurance, intelligence and tool use, plus opposable thumbs, which are incredibly useful for manipulation tasks. She stood up and began pacing, seemingly unaware of the growing terror in her audience. Humans are persistence hunters, she explained. We don't need to be faster than our prey. We just need to keep following until they collapse from exhaustion. Our cooling system is incredibly efficient. Our joints are designed for long-distance travel, and our brains can track prey across vast distances for days or weeks. Days or weeks, Morton whispered. Oh sure. Humans used to hunt mammoths by following them until the herds got tired and confused. Then we'd use coordinated tactics and tools to separate individual targets from the group. Amy pulled up another image on her datapad. This one showed modern humans engaged in what appeared to be recreational persistence hunting. This is a marathon, 26.2 miles of continuous running. Humans do this for fun. Some people run ultramarathons that go on for over 100 miles, for fun. Professor Quintara's voice was barely audible. Yeah, it's great cardio. Plus humans are incredibly adaptable. We live in every environment on Earth except maybe the deep ocean trenches, deserts, frozen wastelands, mountains, jungles, grasslands, urban environments. We modify our tools and techniques to hunt successfully anywhere. Amy sat back down, completely oblivious to the fact that she had just revealed herself to be the most dangerous predator any of them had ever encountered. The really interesting thing about human hunting, she continued conversationally, is how we developed agriculture and animal husbandry to make hunting unnecessary for survival. We basically turned the entire planet into one big hunting preserve where we manage all the other predators and prey species. Moran fainted. His exoskeleton hit the floor with a definitive clatter. Is he okay? Amy asked, looking concerned. Professor Quintara stared at her unconscious student, then back at Amy, then at her 3 centuries worth of research notes scattered across her desk. Her 4 arms moved independently, one rubbing her temple, another gripping her chair, a third frantically flipping through academic papers, and the 4th reaching for what appeared to be a stress relief device. Amy, she said slowly, I need to fundamentally reconsider everything I thought I knew about predator classification. Oh, that makes sense. Amy nodded helpfully. Most galactic species probably don't have symbiotic relationships with their predators, right? Symbiotic relationships, Quintara repeated, testing the words. Is that what you call voluntarily cohabitating with creatures that could kill you? Well, it's mutually beneficial, Amy explained. Dogs get food, shelter, medical care and companionship. Humans get loyalty, protection, hunting assistance, and emotional support. Same with cats, though they're more independent contractors. Morton's crystalline form had stabilized into a deep, thoughtful blue. But how do humans survive the initial domestication period? Surely there must be massive casualties during the training process. Training? Amy laughed. Oh, we don't really train cats. They sort of choose us. A cat will show up at your door, decide you're acceptable human staff, and move in. Then you're basically obligated to provide food, clean water, a clean bathroom, and adequate petting on demand. Cats choose their humans. Professor Quintara's voice had taken on the hollow quality of someone whose worldview was actively crumbling. Yeah, cats are weird that way. Very independent. Dogs are different. They're pack animals, so they integrate into human family structures pretty easily. But cats, they're basically tiny furry landlords who happen to be excellent at pest control. Moran stirred on the floor, his compound eyes slowly reattaching as consciousness returned. Did the human just describe being subjugated by smaller predators? Subjugated is a strong word, Amy mused. More like we have a service agreement. They provide rodent control and purring therapy. We provide food and comfortable napping spots. Professor Quintara was frantically scribbling notes. This challenges every established model of predator-prey relationships in galactic xenobiology. Humans appear to exist in voluntary symbiotic arrangements with multiple predator species simultaneously. Oh sure, Amy agreed. My family back home has 2 dogs, 3 cats, a parrot, and a fish tank with about 30 different species. Plus my dad feeds the wild birds in the backyard, so we've got hawks, eagles and owls stopping by regularly. EEGLs. Moran shrieked, his recently reattached eyes threatening to detach again. Flying predators with razor talons. Beautiful birds, Amy said fondly. Dad's got a whole bird-watching hobby. He can identify over 200 species by sight. Morton was processing this information with visible difficulty, his form flickering between colors. Amy, according to my calculations, human survival rates should be statistically impossible given this level of predator exposure. Well, we've had thousands of years to figure out the relationships, Amy explained patiently. Selective breeding, behavioral training, understanding animal psychology. It's not like we just grabbed random wild animals and hoped for the best. But surely, Professor Quintara interjected desperately, surely there must be regulations, government oversight, safety protocol. For pets, not really, though we do have animal welfare laws, vaccination requirements, leash law. For dogs in public spaces, that sort of thing. The professor buried her face in all 4 hands again. I'm going to have to rewrite my entire curriculum. 300 years of research, completely invalidated by a single human exchange student. Oh, I don't think it's invalidated, Amy said encouragingly. Just incomplete. You could add a whole section on symbiotic predator relationships. I bet other species would find it fascinating. She paused thoughtfully. Actually, would it help if I brought my cat to the next class? Mr. Mittens is very social, and he'd probably enjoy meeting everyone. He loves making new friends. Professor Quintara's response was barely audible. You named a predator Mr. Mittens. Well, he's got white paws that look like little mittens. Very cute. That was the exact moment when Morton and Moran simultaneously stood up, gathered their belongings, and headed toward the door. Where are you going? Professor Quintara called after them. Academic Transfer Office. Morton replied without turning around. I'm switching to theoretical mathematics. Numbers are much safer than whatever this is. I'm requesting immediate transport back to my homeworld, Moran added. acid-spitting tunnel worms suddenly seem very reasonable. As they reached the door, Amy called out helpfully, "Oh, if you're interested, I also have pictures of my sister's pet snake. His name is Noodle, and he's absolutely adorable." The sound of running footsteps echoed down the hallway. Amy turned back to Professor Quintara, who was staring blankly at her scattered research notes. "So," Amy said brightly, "same time next week. I'll bring cookies."